What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my DC comic book reviews. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue number 6 of 7. We are almost at the end of this event, and I still feel, for the most part, kind of underwhelmed. Let me get the positives out of the way. This one's written by Joshua Williamson, art by Daniel Sampier. The artwork by Daniel Sampier is incredible. There's no denying it. This is a beautiful, and I mean very visually stunning looking comic book. Every page just looks fantastic, and there's no denying it. Like, even if the story itself around it isn't all that engaging, it's kind of convoluted and sometimes hard to follow and doesn't really feel like there's a big impact or any real lasting stakes with it. It feels kind of underwhelming since this is a big Crisis event, and it's also being underdone by the fact that, like, in January we're already starting the next event. This is supposed to be a sequel to the biggest crossover event, I think, of all time, with like the most famous comic book crossover event, arguably, with Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's one of the most widely regarded stories of all time. In fact, like, when people think big crossover stuff, you think Crisis on Infinite Earths. But this just feels kind of underwhelming, and it's supposedly a direct sequel. And in some ways, it's kind of like the science doesn't always make as much sense, but my God, does it look so visually good to look at. I just wish I cared about the story and the stakes of everything kind of going on to this thing, because, like I said, the artwork is so good. It's just, it's so much better than the story being told. And I feel bad saying that because I like a lot of what Joshua Williamson has done at DC. I gave him a lot of props for Robin, but the story here just feels kind of underwhelming. The science is just like, okay, they have this antimatter cannon, and then they kind of shoot Pariah with it, and they have to, like, engineer it like it's not in this universe or whatever, and they're still dealing with him and his dark army. So basically, just a bit, Pariah has his dark army, and he's the one manipulating the Great Darkness, which whatever with that explanation, and then they have to stop him. So that's that, or like the multiverse is all doomed. Pariah seemingly kind of wipes out a few people who I'm sure will be back in an instant. His goal is to bring back the Infinite Earths, which are already brought back, so I'm not sure why he has to take out this Earth to begin with. I guess to cement the deal or whatever. I will say some things about Joshua Williamson that I will give a positive for. He writes a better aged up John than Tom Taylor, because John is, like, not as whiny, and he's actually trying to step up as a hero here. He's the man on a mission. He takes this army on full force by himself. Well, not by himself, but he's really just he's willing to give his life to take down the Dark Army, and using all his power, and it really just isn't enough on his own. And also, Pariah kind of is defeated somehow. And right before John is fully done, Clark comes in to kind of save the day. And it's a very nice moment between father and son. He's like, sorry, I was a little late, kiddo. And then they have this big moment where the heroes return. And the death of the Justice League was underwhelming, to be honest. I don't even know why we're doing the Worlds Without a Justice League thing now that the Justice League is back in the fold. And then Pariah is kind of defeated, but his Dark Army is still active. And then we get the hulked up Deathstroke, who's here to kind of fulfill a contract. And yeah, so we have Hulk Deathstroke right here, as I like to call him. Like, or Bane Deathstroke. He is jacked up on all sorts of juice. He seemingly has Nightwing kind of killed. Same with his daughter Rose. But we know they're going to be okay, given the fact that Batman vs. Robin takes place after Dark Crisis. So yeah, they should be okay. I'm curious to see how it all, like, unfolds. I know in the last issue, Damian kind of went off to kind of do something with the Dark Army. I'm sure that'll tie in to the final issue of Dark Crisis. But we have Hulk Deathstroke, who, if he dies, then he'll probably be brought back to life right away, knowing how death and everything has, like, no meaningful consequences in here. Like, the people who died are characters who really don't get much showcase here. We have, like, Blue Beetle here. Is that Green Arrow who kind of died? Maybe, maybe not. I can't fully tell. But all things considered, I've been kind of underwhelmed by this thing so far. If they have deaths that have some lasting stakes, then maybe I'd feel something. But as of right now, Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, outside of the absolutely incredible art and a few decent moments like with John and his dad, has been kind of an underwhelming story for me. This is supposed to be a Crisis level event, And we're one issue left in this thing, and it's just like, what else do they have to do? I guess stop Deathstroke? I don't really feel the excitement building to this conclusion. I'm not really as emotionally invested as I want to be for a Crisis level thing. They have a million different tie-ins, and none of them are really all that good outside of the Flash stuff. The Flash stuff was genuinely good. The Worlds Without a Justice League stuff feels kind of entirely pointless, all things considered. Doesn't really feel that necessary to the plot. We didn't really need all that explanation. Maybe you could have done one issue here, just kind of explaining, okay, they're trapped in these dream worlds and seeing all sorts of stuff. We didn't need 100 different tie-ins to this thing. The only other tie-in that kind of had some significance to the plot, which was the Swamp Thing one, where they explain like what's really going on with Pariah and all that. Now he's the one manipulating the Great Darkness, however that works. That's a major plot thread, but that's the only revelation here. But now that Pariah is kind of done, all that's really left is Deathstroke and the Great Darkness or whatever. I don't know how it's all going to conclude, and I know it's going to be fine, but I feel like with the Crisis thing, they really should have had some more long-term lasting consequences with it. This should have been a thing that really kind of took over DC Comics. If you really wanted to replicate Crisis on Infinite Earths, then you really should have just made everything just this big, huge tie-in to Dark Crisis. I felt like before, with like in years past, with even like the original Dark Knight's Metal, that felt like a big event. It felt like all the books were kind of tying into it. With Dark Crisis, I'm not really getting that. Like, still, Batman's still going off and doing his adventures as on his own. Superman's kind of doing the same thing. All those other things, they feel like Dark Crisis feels like an afterthought when it should be like this big, huge event, like main focal point focus of the DC universe. And it really doesn't feel that way. And I've just kind of felt this with this storyline. I'm not hating it by any stretch of the means. I don't think it's like this terrible thing. I just think it's kind of underwhelming. And the thing that's really kind of carrying it is this absolutely incredible artwork. I mean, Daniel Sampere's artwork is fantastic. Visually, this is a stunning comic to look at. And it really, like, these moments, I wish I could feel more for these big epic moments, like when Superman comes in to save John. But I'm just not. And it's kind of an unfortunate thing. Maybe you're feeling differently than I am. But Dark Crisis, it's just not gripping me like I want it to. Now, I'll give you another example of a storyline, which is kind of like world-ending stakes, that is giving me excited and just kind of curious to see how I feel the consequences of DC versus Vampires. That's one. Yeah, there's admittedly a few too many tie-ins at some point, like the all-out war thing I don't think really needs to be there. But DC versus Vampires, it's a contained storyline. It actually has more issues than Dark Crisis in terms of its main story, believe it or not. But that's a story I feel the stakes, I feel the emotions, I feel the tension more than I do Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. Maybe it's because this is the main universe and that's an Elseworld storyline where they're allowed to kind of take risks with it. But comparing the two, I just feel more emotionally invested in the stakes, and like I feel the tension in that as opposed to something like this. Like I feel the impact of the moments in DC versus Vampires more than something like Dark Crisis. Now, I know they're two really different things, but I'm just trying to give an example of something where I feel the stakes and everything going on with it, as opposed to Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, which just feels kind of like the whole purpose of it is really just to bring back the Infinite Earths. That pretty much just feels like all it is. And then to kind of establish this new Trinity, but they're bringing back Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. So why are they still kind of around? I'm sorry. The whole like new Trinity with John, Jace Fox, and Yara Flor, it's been a bust. I don't get why they're, of all the characters, like this supposedly this new Trinity, why Jace Fox's Batman is beyond me. I don't feel like anybody's really reading the whole I Am Batman storyline. I don't feel like anybody really talks about it all that much. Bruce Wayne is still Batman going on right now. And why is there another guy dressed up like Batman in a completely different city? It just, I don't get the point of it all. Yeah, they tried to do something with it in Future State, but it just, like, Jace Fox should not be Batman. If any member of the Fox family should be, it should be Luke Fox, because he actually has a connection with Batman and the rest of the Bat family, not Jace Fox. But I'm getting way off track here. The point is, Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, I don't hate it by any stretch of the means. I just think it's, at best, kind of okay, and it's really being carried by some amazing artwork. I will give Williamson some props. Like, John's actually written better here than he is in his own main solo book, which gives me kind of hope for what he's going to do with Superman coming up. But the event as a whole, I feel like it's been kind of a dud. It's a little bit convoluted, kind of hard to follow in some ways. I think that's kind of the issue. Sometimes we get to like more of these cosmic-esque like events and stuff, and dealing with all sorts of crazy factors. That's kind of one of the things that threw me off from like Dark Knight's Death Metal, to the point where like it got so confusing to follow. I'm like, what the hell is even happening at this point? And you have to like watch a bunch of recap videos or like explanation videos of like what's really going on in the whole thing to really follow what's going on. Dark Crisis, like I can still follow it for the most part. I'm just not as like I said, emotionally invested in it as I think I should be. So yeah, those are my quick thoughts on Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths issue number 6 to 7. We only have one main issue left. I will cover the I Am Batman tie-in tomorrow, along with the a few other comic books that I haven't gotten around to reading yet. I just want to get this main story out. It's the only reason I'm reviewing I Am Batman. I did review a few issues of it, but I just didn't think it was all that great of a story. But I will cover that Crisis tie-in. I think next week is there's a few other tie-ins, like that Dark Crisis Young. Oh yeah, the Young Justice one. I forgot about that too. Why is that even a tie-in to this book? And that thing is like a bad tie-in, and just feels so out of place. So that's another thing with Dark Crisis. Even the tie-ins, just outside of the Flash one, none of them have really been all that good. The only one I'm kind of hoping for is good is that Dark Army one. And if that one's a dud, then I'm going to be really disappointed, because that's the only one where I feel like there could be something interesting with it. Because they're actually like, remember that character Red Canary, who they hyped up with all these like oh, here's a new character, oh, they are on a variant cover, and they've done absolutely nothing throughout this entire event. How many issues have we had of this thing? We've had 6 here, and then we had all the different tie-ins, and so far that character's done absolutely nothing. Hopefully they actually do something in this next thing, because it's just like, why even have this character in here if they've done nothing or contributed anything like major to the plot? So I have a feeling like Damian and that's going to come in like and do the big hero moment in the next issue. At least I think he should, considering Williamson was writing him and Robin. I feel like there you go. There's his big, real, like kind of changing moment. Have him kind of stop the Dark Crisis army or whatever it is, because now we got like Nightwing and Slade in that. I feel like with the whole Shadow War and the connections there, I feel like that's the character who should do something like that, but only time will tell. So yeah, all right, I think I've rambled enough about Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths number 6 of 7, and just talked about all sorts of different things, and probably lost focus of like a lot of the stuff in this particular issue. But once I start rambling, then I start rambling, so I apologize for that. But anyways, be sure to come back tomorrow. Got more videos coming out. Like I said, I Am Batman, Batman Incorporated, and I think the other one is Urban Legends, which is going to be ending next month, I think. So almost done with covering that entire series. So that was an interesting one to cover. But yeah, so look forward to all that stuff. All right, well, that's all I have to say. Post your comments down below what you thought of Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths number 6 of 7. And what do you think overall of the events and DC Comics in general, and all that other fun stuff. I want to get that love and excitement back for DC. I feel like I haven't had that in anything in a while. But we'll see. All right, well, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.